Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we focus on real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined, as always, by Derek Brissett. Derek, it's been a tough week for Canadian sport, I'd say. Obviously, been going on with the FIFA World Cup. Canada first lost to Belgium and then followed that up with a loss to Croatia. Although Alphonso Davies was the first Canadian player to score a goal at the FIFA World Cup. Yeah. That's great to see. For teams in red, especially, my beloved Wales put on the best 60 minutes of the Wayne Pivac reign, only to follow up with the 20 worst minutes in international rugby this year, I imagine. That was a tough pill to swallow. But Canada did win for the first time ever the Davies Cup. So, swings and roundabouts. And
I guess we've learned we're good at tennis. Maybe not as good at soccer, but hey, we're there for the first time. That's always nice.
That is true.
That
for the first time in a long
time. That Davies scored was sick.
That was a sick goal. Wonderful. That was
really too bad. The rest of the Croatia scored 4 other goals. We'll ignore that part. I don't know. I guess Canada's got to play Morocco now. I guess that's just for pride, I guess. But Morocco beat Belgium, so I guess how good is Morocco?
Morocco is probably playing for going through to the elimination rounds as is Belgium. Although I do want sports fans to keep in mind that Belgium, who Canada played first, were the bronze medal winners at the previous World Cup. And Croatia were the silver medal winners at the previous World Cup. So, from the outset, it was always going to be a tough pool. And, as you said, just getting to the World Cup is an achievement in and of itself. So,
it's it is. It's honestly, it's really cool to see Canada kind of excelling on the world stage, both in, soccer and tennis here, but it's I'm not the biggest. I shouldn't say I'm not the biggest soccer fan, because I'm like the smallest soccer fan, I guess. I feel like the World Cup is my obligatory. I'll turn on a match once every 4 years, unless I'm invited to like a TFC game or something, which are actually really fun, even if you don't like soccer. I'm not gonna lie, TFC games are a good time. I kind of feel like this is like my obligatory, like every 4 years I'll pay attention to it. And every 4 years, I'm just like, I thought this country was good. I thought this country was bad. And they're all reverse winning or losing to each other that I thought was good or I thought was bad. So it just kind of clarifies the fact that I know nothing about soccer. I still don't understand the offside rule. It makes no sense to me.
Most of the players don't either. So don't worry about it.
My honest question, how is it my problem if you can't defend me properly? I don't get it. Like, why no other sport has this? I don't understand it. I don't understand the offside rule or the logic behind the offside rule in this sport. Make it like every other sport. It's like a hard line or an imaginary line, but at least there's a line. Like it's an imaginary line, but it's a constantly moving imaginary line. How come players in soccer don't just line up and just be like, you can't go past us? Like why not just? I need a British person.
You remember those obscure laws in rugby? For example, in the mall or something, like a player can't jump on top of a mall or something like that. It's probably one of those things. Someone did it once.
Against doing that?
So that's the thing. So someone probably did it once. It annoyed a lot of people, and therefore they put it in the rules that you can't do that. Now, listeners and viewers and subscribers to the podcast may be noticing that we're not really talking about rugby on the rugby podcast. That is because the international season, I should say, has come to an end now. And so there are no test games that are scheduled to happen for the men's or the women's teams. The Sevens is set to continue this coming weekend. So obviously we can't really talk about how that's gone until after it's happened. But one thing that will be coming up this week that we do want to be talking about, and this is for the next generation of male rugby players, playing 15s especially, is the Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship. This will be taking place over 3 rounds over 5 days, and it'll be hosted by UBC Thunderbirds out in Vancouver. And this will be the 5th annual Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship. So from what we gathered, there are 8 teams taking part. These are seeded as following: BC 1 region, which was UVic. Seed 2 is Ontario 1, which was, I believe, is
the Guelph Griffins.
Is Guelph. Well, 3, which is BC again, is the hosts, the Thunderbirds. 4th is Laurier, the Golden Hawks. 5th is McGill. 6th is the Calgary Dinos. 7 is the Memorial Seahawks. And 8th is the Trinity Western Spartans. So Trinity Western isn't just the 3rd BC team taking part because it's set in BC. There was a playoff match between Trinity Western University and UBC. So they have the final berth spot. So the matches will be played. The first round, which is the quarterfinals. So it's quarterfinals, then semifinals, and then the medal games, or the finals, I think is the best way to do it. So each team will take part in the quarterfinals. The winners will progress to the championship semifinals, the losers into the consolation semifinals. The losers of the consolation semifinals will then take part in the 7th place final. The winners of the consolation finals will take in the 5th place final. The losers of the championship final will take part in the bronze medal game, and the winners will go through to the gold medal game. And if you're wondering where you can get a little bit more information about this, thankfully, the Rugby Network has an article by Brian Kelly, and he's given a list of 5 players to look out for. And some of these names, if you're fans of Canadian rugby and has been paying attention to the Canada 15 tour to Brazil, where they played Chile and Brazil 15s, you'll notice some names. So Dakota and Talon McMullen as well. If you're a fan of the Toronto Arrows, you may recognize that Kobe Faust will be suiting up for Guelph Griffins. If you were watching the draft, the 2022 MLR draft, you'll notice the name Ethan Hager, representing the UVic Vikings, who has been drafted by the Dallas Jackals. If you've been paying attention to the under-20 team, Jacob Bossy will be suiting up for the UBC Thunderbirds. And out of McGill, this is a name to look forward to, Alexandra Laurendow, who was the 2022 RSEQ Rookie of the Year. And in this article by Kelly, it says he's been in brilliant form this year, helping his side knock off the Ottawa GGs 31-24 to capture their first RSEQ championship since 2015. So, some good names to keep your eye out for. And as I said, this article is on the Rugby Network, because the Rugby Network are broadcasting all of these games for free. And the broadcast schedule is listed there. These are all in Pacific time. Obviously, it takes place in British Columbia. So on Wednesday, November 30th, hopefully this podcast will be out by then, because it's going to be a very short podcast, I'm afraid. The kickoff time for the first quarterfinal will be at 11 o'clock. Then the second one will be at 2 p.m. The third one at 5 p.m. And the final game of the day will be at 7:30 p.m. I mean, Derek, 4 games of rugby in one afternoon. Well, one day, I should say. Yeah. It's like the World Cup. It's like all this rugby going on, and it's all for free on the Rugby Network. I don't know how it can get any better than that.
Honestly, I don't think it can. I mean, I think last weekend was, as you kind of alluded to, was like the first weekend in a while where there was no Canadian teams in action as far as on the international stage goes. No men's team, no women's team, sevens team wasn't playing. All the university squads are getting prepped for this tournament. Obviously, that's taking place this week. So there was not much going on as far as like Canadian rugby goes, which meant to occupy my time, I went to go see Black Adam, which is a movie that exists. That is a movie that exists.
That is a glowing review if I've ever heard one.
glowing review. That's I'm not yeah, it's yeah, that movie happened. Honestly, my honest review of that movie would be it does look cool and there's some cool fight scenes, but the story you know, needs
It's a movie you can watch
yeah,
with
it's
the
a
sound
movie.
off.
Yeah, exactly. Bring it. It's
All right.
probably it'll be one of those good like quote unquote like the second screen movies. You know,
Okay.
you want to like if you got some work to do, Stu, you got some podcast prep, you can probably
All
throw Black
right.
Adam on in the streaming background, pop up every time Hawkman and Dr. Fate are on screen, and then go back to work.
All right. Fair enough. I'll keep that in mind.
So I just want to say thank you to the Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship for not making me go watch Black Adam again this weekend. Delightful. Thank you very much. I think, yeah, it's obviously a tournament that is very exciting. I think, I feel like, I'm really excited about Canadian University Rugby, both for the men's and for the women's. I'll be the first to admit that this isn't exactly my area of expertise as far as like analysis and everything goes. Um, so like which I think also does kind of make it a little bit more exciting. So I don't have a whole lot of deep insight onto the teams, but I think that's also kind of what can make this tournament fun, right? And
Yeah.
I love seeing that it's going to be on the Rugby Network. The times are pretty good depending on what part of the country you live in. You might for obviously the first two games being Wednesdays and Fridays, the first two rounds, right? So it's like there's probably going to be a little sneaking the extra screen in the window that you might have to click away when your boss walks by the desk or something.
Not that we ever do that.
No, not that
Of course
we
not.
ever
Of course
do
not.
that. No, never do that. But I think that's I think that's kind of part of it though. But all the other, there's a lot of games that are obviously on good times. Obviously the championship round or the finals are on the Sunday, which is nice too. So it makes for like a really good, full weekend of rugby. You kind of mentioned a couple key players there too. It is also, it's also kind of, I think, there's a lot of names, even like beyond what Kelly wrote. I mean, you have obviously for Guelph, you have Kobe Foss, but there's also still further Toronto Arrows influences. Corey Hector and Tom Van Horn are on the coaching staff, so that's cool. UBC has Talon and Dakota McMullen, as well as Isaac Kelly, who were both, who all three of them were playing. They even did that crazy thing where they played for Canada down in Brazil, flew back and played a game for UBC. Which might come in handy considering how frequently you have to play games in this tournament. UVic as well has some interesting names. You mentioned Hager. They also have Gabe Casey and Denver Fat, who the Arrows drafted, and as well as Logan Martin Feek, who was a fly half the Arrows drafted in 2021, but due to injury never actually played during last season. TWU also has Tamalor Awanasi, who has played for the Irish Sevens team recently and is also still playing. So that's and it's back for helped TWU get that that big wild card win over UBC Okanagan. Right, so it's you got some names kind of through the whole tournament that kind of jump out as guys that have already played. Say maybe U20 or like I guess for the senior national team, uncapped games, but some senior national team representation there, as well as like a handful of guys that are drafted by the MLR teams. And I think that's like, to me, I think that's kind of the thing that gets the most excited for it is I think like as the MLR kind of grows and the draft hopefully becomes a bigger deal. And I think hopefully the draft is like, this is like kind of awesome if you're going to like follow, like, going into the draft for next year and stuff, right? Like, something you basically have, I guess, the 8 best teams in the country all in one spot that get to battle for a national championship. And, whoever, if you stand out in this tournament, it seems like it could go a long way to, finding yourself on an MLR team. Right. So, I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see, some of these Arrows draft picks or guys that have already signed for the Arrows, how they perform from that point of view, but also, some of those guys that could be future like Team Canada players and, just, anybody that, may surprise and who might end up standing out, right? Because this is obviously it seems like the Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship really wants to kind of build this to be part of that like pathway to professional rugby, the national team, right? And now like there is that draft system in place now too, right? So it does make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more entertaining. And there's obviously a lot of intrigue here. Some interesting teams. Laurier coming to the tournament, they had a huge upset over Queens. So kind of unusual looking at the bracket for this tournament and not seeing that queue there, but Laurier obviously has some Arrows influence too, or I guess not. I was going to say Arrows influence, but I guess Andrew Quattrin plays for the Free Jacks now. Obviously some good players have come out of that program, and I guess Bill Webb is from Laurier too. So that's obviously a huge Arrows influence. But it's So I think I don't know. I think it'll be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a fun way to spend a weekend. I think the format to me is kind of fascinating because it's a bracket, which is, as we all know, is the best way to do playoff tournaments. Brackets are just so much fun. But so we got a bracket, and then you basically have to play 3 games in what is it, 5 days, right? Like
essentially.
So that's a lot, man. I was like that's a lot of rugby in a very short period of time. So interesting. So that's kind of one of those things too. It's always interesting to see how players and coaches navigate that as far as like roster selection. And it's like, in a tournament with this structure like that, a big part of it just might be it seems like a big part of this tournament might just be being healthy and who's because there's not a lot of recovery time between these games.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see because obviously some teams are more well positioned than others. For example, host UBC, they've won every single version of the Canadian University's Men's Rugby Championship, except for in 2019, which was won by UVic. And I'm sure they like reminding UBC of that every time they meet up. But okay, so I'm going to go through the 4 quarterfinals, and Derek, I want you to tell me who you think is going to progress, and then we'll go from there, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, first up, we have UVic versus the Trinity Western Spartans.
I think I got to go UVic. All
right.
They've obviously just, I kind of rattled it off. They have a lot of MLR drafted players on that team, so I think that they're 1 seed for maybe a reason. Although I'm sure UBC might dispute why they're the 1 seed though. But
all right, next up we have Laurier versus McGill.
I think, yeah. I'm gonna go McGill.
All right.
McGill
okay.
For no.
Now, the only real team that seems to be in that allocation out of it is the Spartans, and you've already picked UVic, so everything else is just like, I wonder where this is going to go. But let's go. Okay, next match we have the Guelph Griffins versus the Memorial Seahawks. Guelph? Yeah, I mean you got to keep Ontario, I think. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess I just went against Ontario for the Laurier.
And you got to pick one. You got to pick, and seeing as we're both based in the Toronto region, Guelph is the closest one, so they are the honorary team that Torontonians can support.
I mean, sure. I don't know. I don't know how many people are going to love that logic, but sure.
And the final quarterfinal game we have listed is the host UBC Thunderbirds against the Calgary Dinos.
UBC. I think, like, to me, in all honesty, regardless of what the seeding numbers actually say, UBC is the favorite to win this tournament. They won 3 of the 4. We kind of mentioned a handful of the great players they have, coached by Curry Hitchborn for all these years as well, and it's on their home turf. Like, I mean, I don't really care what the seeding says. Like UBC has to be the favorite to win this.
Yeah. All right, then. So we have for your semifinals, it'll be UVic versus McGill. Which one do you think is going to advance to the final?
UVic.
All right. Okay. And then we have Guelph versus UBC, and considering you consider UBC the favourites, do you think Guelph so the Griffins will fall to the Thunderbirds then?
Oh man, yeah, I know it. Yeah. You know what? I know I literally just said I'm going to totally contradict myself based on this.
Well, you said they're the favorites to win, but that doesn't mean they're going to win.
Exactly, they should be. Maybe they should be the favorites to win.
All right.
You know what? We have to let's mix this up, man. We need to have something other than UBC and UVic in the final. And so, if you asked me the reverse order of this, and you said the UBC game first, I might have picked this differently. But let's go Guelph. Let's put a non-BC team through the final. Why not?
So Guelph versus UVic, and you think the Guelph are going to pull off the ultimate upset and take their first Canadian Universities Men's Rugby Championship?
No.
Oh, you think it's going to be UVic again?
We'll go UVic.
Right, okay. You heard it here first, folks.
This analysis
UVic to win the 2022.
I know this makes no sense. I literally was like, oh yeah, they're the favorite. They obviously are the favorite. Let's eliminate them. It doesn't make any sense.
No,
as I preface this, I don't know much about the university rugby. So
yeah, I don't know. As in, we're all learning here. It's all making progress. We're all hoping to watch the games, pick up some teams to follow, some new names to focus on, and yeah, it's looking set to be a great tournament. And you can obviously follow all the action on the Rugby Network, and those first 4 games of the quarterfinals will be available this Wednesday, November 30th. So the first game kicks off 11 p.m. Pacific time, so that will make it 2 p.m. Eastern, I believe, if my math is mathing. Yeah. So 2 p.m. Eastern for the first game of that tournament. And as I said, you can watch all the games for free on the Rugby Network. Just remember to sign up.
Who do you think's going to win? You have to.
I think UBC.
Who's your final?
UBC.
Yeah.
Versus Laurier.
Whoa. Okay.
And like an absolute wild card. So UVic versus Trinity will go down to the wire. UVic will be so tired out, and then I
feel like we're just trying to avoid picking the UBC UVic final because it's not as
I mean, that's pretty much what it's going to be. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, let us dream. So, as I said, you can watch all these games on the Rugby Network, and if you're looking to watch any other rugby that's happening this weekend, as we said, the Sevens will return. I believe they're in Dubai this weekend, and they'll be available on CBC. And if you're wanting to keep up with the Premiership and URC, you can do so on Sportsnet. And if you want to keep up with the Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship on social media, they are available on Instagram at CanUMen'sRugby, and they're also available on Facebook. In fact, if you want to follow us on social media, we are available on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at the Rouge Rugby. That's also our handle for our YouTube account, where you can watch videos of podcasts as well as some interviews that we've done, post-match interviews with Arrows players and coaching staff. And you can listen to more of our podcasts on Spotify, Anchor FM, and Apple Podcasts. Derek, where can the fine people find you on social media?
At Brissette the Jet across all social media platforms.
Similarly, you can find me across all social media platforms at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, like we said, it's a very short episode, but we are looking forward to the Canadian Universities Men's Rugby Championship. Derek, thank you for joining me as we waffle on about who we'd like to see besides UVic and UBC in that Men's Rugby Championship final. And thank you all to watching and listening to this episode of the Canadian Real Rugby podcast, the Rouge Rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.